Weirdest Kids Toys Ever, Part 36. Drippy the Runny Nose Kid. I think we all knew one of those growing up. Released in Japan in 1967 by the Parksmith Corporation. You could fill him up with goo, press his stomach, and it would come out of his nose. They also made a girl version to prove that both sexes can be equally disgusting. That was actually part of the advertisement. A weird and gross toy, but worth so much money if you have one.
Bueno, aquí les presentamos a la muñeca de Bessie que se la regalaron a sus 15 años.
No manches, mira.
Here are some of the most dangerous toys that were ever made for kids. First, we have Barbie and Tanner, which came out in 2007. Now, the puppy was supposed to eat and dispose of his food, so he literally pooped it out. And the magnet inside of him would often come loose, and toddlers would swallow it and literally have intestinal blockage. Then we had Clackers, which came out in the 70s, and they were taken off just a decade later for a major safety hazard. The acrylic balls would often hit people in the face, or they would break and go into people's eyes. Then we have Rollerblade Barbie, which came out in the 90s, and she literally had this like cigarette lighter device in her rollerblades that would literally shoot out sparks. And obviously being flammable was a major health hazard. Then we have the Hannah Montana Pop Star card game. Apparently this ended up having a crazy amount of toxic lead in it. And then we have the Burger King Pokemon balls from 1999. So many kids were suffocating using these because they would just put them over their mouths and not be able to get them off, which is horrible. And guys, there's so many more I could talk about, so maybe I'll do a part 2, I don't know.
Most dangerous toys of all time. This is a toothpick crossbow. It's very popular in other countries, but it's incredibly dangerous. This thing has enough power to pierce through clothes and skin. Tons of schools in China had to ban these because kids were getting into crossbow fights in class. And these things can literally pierce someone's eyeball.
Scariest Toys of All Time Part 1. This is Sir Growls-a-Lot. He looks like a nice teddy bear, and tons of people have bought him for their kids. But believe it or not, this teddy bear has made hundreds of children cry. Although innocent looking at first, when you give him a hug, this happens.
I hate this one, but everybody's been asking for this one, so I'll just do it. Another one of the reasons why I hate dolls is because of this video. So in Mexico, this video surfaced, and like the comment says, it is basically a video of a woman walking her doll. The weird part about this doll is that it will only walk with the woman and nobody else. Here's the clip.
Ah, Rosita. Es muy buena gente, Rosita. Mira, mira. Ay, cabrón. Se hace dura, pienso, y ahí va.
If you have one of these toys in your house, you need to remove it, and remove it now. A young teenage boy was in his little brother's room late one night, and as his little brother watched a movie, the young teenage boy played with the animated LED spinner and became hypnotized by it. It's said that he looked into this thing for more than 2 hours straight before putting it down and going to bed. But in the middle of the night, that young teenager headed down to the family's garage and grabbed the sledgehammer. As he walked back through the house, he bludgeoned his little brother and both of his parents to death as they slept, and then just took himself to bed. The next morning when he woke, he was horrified to find his whole family had been slaughtered as they slept. He quickly ran out of the house and waited for police, but it would be after a lengthy police interview that the boy would realise all of a sudden that he was the one that murdered his family. I killed them. I killed them all.
This might be the scariest toy of all time. This is called an evil stick. It was sold at dollar stores everywhere, but the picture behind this black thing is absolutely terrifying. It appeared out of nowhere, traumatized kids for a few months, and disappeared without a trace. Behind the black thing is a picture of a demonic girl hurting herself. It's shocking to see for everybody, but for kids this would be horrific. I blurred out the most graphic part. This picture was hidden in a children's toy.
I'm Haley, the ghost girl, and that doll behind me is Annabelle, one of the world's most haunted dolls. In my last TikTok, I shared with you guys that after being blessed, I had the chance to meet her. But a lot of you were commenting saying that that doll looked nothing like the doll in the Annabelle movie. But don't worry, I got to meet her too. And then she showed up at my house. Yep, the actual doll from the Annabelle movie showed up at my doorstep. They even gave me gloves so that I didn't have to touch her. Creepy. After a few spirit box sessions and electronic malfunctions while in her presence, she was returned, but man, was that cool. Full video on my YouTube channel.
Most Dangerous Toys of All Time Part 36. This is a Gilbert's glass blowing kit. It was released in the 1950s, and many kids bought this toy or got it as a gift. And if it isn't obvious enough already, this was incredibly dangerous. This toy allowed kids to heat up glass to 1000 degrees Fahrenheit, and then they were able to mold it into figurines or glass containers. Thousands were severely burned because of this toy.
Weirdest Kids Toys Ever, Part 30. Super Elastic Bubble Plastic. Released in 1970 by Whammo Toys. This one is cool, weird, and extremely dangerous. Pretty much just a glorified balloon that you blew from a cocaine straw. It contained polyvinyl acetate and benzene. Dangerous to inhale and increased your risk of cancer. These were discontinued in the 80s, but similar products are still available today.
Creepiest toys of all time. The doll you're about to see was found in an antique store. And for the most part, it seems like a pretty normal doll, except for one thing. The frickin' expression on her face. I'm not sure why they decided to make her look like this, but it freaks me out. Would you want this toy?
This is a really creepy story about a haunted doll named Okiku. In 1918 in Japan, a boy bought his 2-year-old sister this doll. This doll became the little girl's best friend. She would take her everywhere and sleep with her every night. But then something really sad happened. One year, the little girl tragically passed away from the yellow fever. They didn't let the family bury the little doll with the girl, so instead they left it in a shrine in memory of their daughter. And they named her Okiku after the little girl, but that's when weird things started to happen. The traditional shoulder-length hair on the little doll started to grow, just like how normal hair would, and it even started to look a little damaged and brittle near the ends. Okiku is now secured in a clear box at the Menenji Temple. A priest trimmed off a little piece of her hair and sent it to a lab that proved that it is child human growing hair that grows on her hair each year. And now her mouth is starting to open. When tourists look inside of her mouth, they could see something glowing.
Every night, the doll would sit and watch him sleep from the corner of the room. His mum had given him the gift from one of her friends that always gave them toys. But Danny knew from the moment that he saw it that it was pure evil. It started with him noticing the doll's hands in different positions, and quickly escalated to him finding the doll sitting on the end of his bed at night. But it was a few months later when Danny woke to the doll smothering his face as he slept. He quickly grabbed it and threw it up against the wall. As it slid down, the doll stood up and just ran out of the room. Danny quickly slammed the door and locked it. He sat in fear in his room looking at the door all night long, but the doll never came back. Next morning when light filled his room, Danny carefully walked down the hallway. He searched each room for the doll when he finally got to his parents' bedroom, and he found both of his parents murdered in their beds, and the doll sitting on the end of their bed, smiling. He ran out of the house that morning, and no one believed him about the doll, because when they searched the house, they never found it.
Creepiest toys of all time, Part 13. This is the Jolly Chimp. It was sold between 1950 and 1970. And yes, this was an actual toy. You would either put batteries in it or wind it up, and the toy would smash the cymbals and show its teeth. This toy was very popular and sold everywhere. But you're about to see some footage of this toy in action. And you tell me, does this frighten you?
Scariest toys in the world, Part 1. And today we're looking at Robert the Doll. Not creepy at all, right? Robert the Doll is a toy that is currently housed in Key West, Florida, but he's got quite the history. So obviously this doll is pretty creepy, I mean just looking at it. But it's even crazier to realize that Robert the Doll is actually wearing his deceased owner's clothes. I mean, even his dog's kind of creepy. Okay, this is supposedly the first owner of the doll, but here's what's really weird, is that Robert the Doll is not actually a doll. He was a mannequin that got taken from a store. Now this is little Gene Otto. He had the doll at some point, as you can see. Those are the clothes that are currently on the doll. And the little boy loved the doll so much that he actually kept him in the attic like it was his own bedroom. And passerbys would look up and see the doll looking at them from out the window. Not creepy. Eventually, Robert the Doll would end up in a museum for ghosts. And supposedly during his lifespan as a toy, he's been responsible for broken bones and causing car accidents. So like, should I get it for my kid or not?
Here are some of the creepiest kids' gifts that will probably traumatize them. Before I get started, as you all know, I hate my videos getting pulled down, so I've done an adult version on my Instagram. You can check it out right now, and it includes this guy behind me. Let's get to the kids' version. First up, we have this guy. I mean, really, guys? Who's giving this to their kids? Or what about this one? I mean, this one looks like 140 years old, but it's brand new. Or you could give them a creepy Jack in the Box. And if that one doesn't scare the shit out of your kids, what about this guy? I mean, you could just sit him in the corner of the room and listen to him say, "Hey, come and play with me." Or what about something that looks like it's on wheels? That maybe ate you. Because that's not going to traumatize your kids, is it? And then you have my favourite of all. Come and play with me.